Almost 90% of women have cellulite. And guess what? It's not their fault. We don't choose cellulite, but we can choose a different way to treat it. Meet Quo, collagenase Clostridium histolyticum, AAES, the first and only FDA-approved prescription injectable for moderate to severe cellulite in the buttocks of adult women. This non-surgical treatment is injected by an aesthetic specialist in 10 minutes or less. Individual results may vary. Do not receive if you are allergic to any collagenase or ingredients in Quo or have an infection at the treatment site. May cause serious side effects, allergic reactions including anaphylaxis, and injection site bruising. Seek medical help right away for any signs of allergic hypersensitivity. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions, if you have a bleeding condition, or take medicine that prevents clotting. Most common side effects include bruising, pain, hardness, itching, redness, discoloration, swelling, and warmth at the injection site. Ask your doctor about all possible side effects and for product information. If you're ready to get to the bottom of your cellulite, learn more and find a specialist at Quo.com.
This holiday season, I'm giving thanks to our friends at Manscaped. Do I tell my extended family that I have the Performance Package 4.0 from the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming? Not to mention, it includes their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer to tame my bush and score brownie points with the in-laws. Gift yourself Manscaped or the man in your life who needs it. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with 20% off plus free shipping with the code TAGS, TAGS, by going to manscaped.com. What is going on? You are listening to TAGSPodcast, aka Talk About Gay Sex Podcast, and I'm your host, Steve V. This is episode 316, and on this special episode, I am joined by two special guests along the same scope of male sexuality. We're going to be talking sexual performance enhancement on a multitude of levels, from erectile dysfunctions or early stages of, to preventative and healthy lifestyle choices, including diet, cutting-edge supplements, and procedures for a healthy and abundant sexual lifespan. Wow, right? These two guests are really experts in their field, and I think you're going to learn a lot from both of them. I certainly did when I did these interviews. Get ready for both of them. I've got two guests on the show, an intimacy expert and a urologist, so stay tuned for some great information for your sexual well-being. Up first is intimacy expert with a wealth of knowledge about biohacking, supplements, penis pumps that work, and so much more. Here's my conversation with Susan Bratton. Well, I am really excited for our guest today, intimacy expert to millions, Susan Bratton. Susan, how you doing? I just want to read, how you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be with you right now.
Absolutely happy to have you here on Tags. Just for people, Susan is an intimacy expert to millions. Susan is a champion and advocate for all who desire intimacy and passion their whole life long. She's
Amen.
You're the co-founder and CEO of two corporations. We're talking Personal Life Media, Inc., a publisher of heart-connected lovemaking techniques and bedroom communications skills, and is it the 20 or the 2.0? The 20?
It's the 20.
The 20. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, which is
Yep.
a manufacturer of organic and botanical supplements that enhance sexual vitality. Susan is the best-selling author and publisher of 34 books and programs, including Sexual Soulmates and Relationship Magic. Again, Susan, welcome to the show. And, my first question that we always get asked, so I thought I'd turn it around on you, is we always get, how did you get into having a show about gay sex? And so I ask you, how did you become an intimacy expert to millions?
Well, I crept up on the sucker over time.
As we all do. Yep.
25 years ago, my sex life hit a wall with my husband, and we're like, what? this is bullshit. We got to do something about it. And we started taking tantric lovemaking workshops and all kinds of sex workshops. And our sex life got so good that we were like, ooh, this is amazing. How come nobody teaches us this? And we started a company. It's been over 15 years ago that we started a company teaching orgasm skills, passionate lovemaking techniques, basically how to transform having sex into making love. The heart-connected, conscious lovemaking that is that, real sexy, intimate interplay of lovers. And there are techniques for that. And so I run the publishing company that teaches those techniques, and I give tons away for free. And then about 15 years in, maybe 11 years, 12 years in, we said, what people also really need is not just techniques and communication skills, but help with the physical situation, whether that's dealing with ED or wanting a bigger dick or not being able to have orgasms because it hurts or whatever it might be. How can we help people have more sexual vitality? What is it that actually creates vitality? What makes you want sex? And what happens when you don't? And we started the 20, which is based on the 80-20 rule. 20%, it's 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. And we basically did a ton of research on libido and what plant-based things actually create more desire in your body. Because it's not always just a mental game. Sometimes you got problems.
Right. Absolutely. We're going to get into some of these. And real quick, I know you work with all types of people, but what's the biggest difference, if there is, between the male and female sex drive?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because my specialty is actually men. I work with women too, but my God, men are easy to work with compared to women.
I bet.
And my God, because dudes are just like, tell me what to do. And I'm like, here's the checklist. And they're like, cool, I'm going to go do it. And then I'm like, thank you so much for that. Girls are like, now, can we just talk? Can we just have some processing about these things, And so I gravitated toward men because I'm just kind of one of those, let me make you a list and tell you what to do type of people. I like to just net it out, make it simple, boil it down. Here's the steps. And the difference between men and women is that men have a competitive advantage sexually. And that is that if you're born, and I don't even like to say men and women, I am a gender spectrum supporter.
Love it.
But there is a difference between XX and XY chromosome. There is a difference between the sexes. And I love fluid gender expression, but you got a package. You were born with either a penis or a vulva. And you can change that, but you still end up with the hormonal situation, which is that testosterone is the molecule of horniness. God love it. Yes. And men wake up with a big load of testosterone every morning, and they are just generally more consistently hornier than their female-bodied counterparts. And that doesn't mean that everyone's not on a spectrum, because when you think about sexuality, it is a giant bell curve. I mean, there's some people who are horny all the time, and there's some people who are never horny. There's some people who want to come every day, and there's some people who, when they come, it makes them cry and depressed, and they just don't like to do it, So I'm always working for that kind of middle of the bell curve, the typical person. So I do speak in the generalities while loving the edge cases.
Love it. Well, okay, so we had a listener who often writes in for our advice, and I thought this is a perfect question for you.
Super.
He writes, "Hello, my name is Asmir. He's a listener to our show."
Excellent.
He writes, "It's amazing. My question would be, my husband, he's older than me, and sometimes he has a problem being erect. At times, it's a little uncomfortable because he gets very frustrated." The writer says, he says nothing, but ultimately the husband shuts down and it just creates a whole problem. What would be your advice? Does this sound like erectile dysfunction, ED? Or can you just speak to when a couple, one of them gets very frustrated, which probably doesn't help anything out, right?
Yeah, I know it does. But, frustration is often just unmet desire.
Got it.
Packaged in packaged in the way that you can express it. But erectile dysfunction is super, super common. It happens to many people. I'd even venture to say over time to most people. And typically the most common type of erectile function is I can get hard, but I can't stay hard. And that's the kind of the biggest part of the bell curve is what's called a venous leak, which is where over time the blood vessels in your penis get filled with plaque, and then your penis actually has these three big spongy chambers in it that blood flows in, which I love. It's called hemodynamics. I love that word. It just sounds so sexy. And the hemodynamics, boink, they give you a hard on, because what happens is that all the blood goes in and then it compresses and locks in the blood. But when your veins and arteries begin to get plaque in them, then it gets brittle rather than loose and fluid, the vascular system, and it can't lock off to keep the blood in there. So essentially, have you ever heard the term, Steve, have you heard the term biohacking?
I have not, no. So let me know what that is.
Okay, so biohacking is basically reversing aging. It's making yourself younger using treatments, supplements, exercise, nutrition. They call it a stack of things that basically reverse the clock. And I am all about biohacking, like every aspect of my life. I want to be youthing the whole time, not aging. And essentially, a stack is things you do to do what's called sexual regenerative treatments. And there's a stack that I love that works really well for guys with ED. And and I always do this thing where it's like, okay, how much money do you have to spend? Because some people are like, I got tons of money and no time. And other people are like, I have no money, but more time. What do I need to do?
Right.
So I like to have kind of the budget and luxury version of things. And the budget version of what to do about ED, to reverse ED. First of all, it's always good to go to a urologist. I'm not a urologist, but I work with many excellent urologists who've trained me.
And we have one on the show later today, so this is great. So we'll throw those questions to him. Yes.
So the cheap way to go is to use a vacuum erection device, a penis pump, to bring blood into the penis to fill up those chambers and get the vascular system moving again. Then the next thing, and I honestly think the best thing, is to go get Gainswave treatments. Gainswave is this acoustic sound that they basically blast your dick with sound that essentially chips the clogged arteries off in your dick and stimulates new tissue growth so that you regenerate more youthful nerves, vascular system, as well as general penile tissue. And then if you got lots of money, I recommend getting a P shot or Priapus shot, which is while you're in there getting your Gainswaves, you can get these injections, and they use lidocaine. It doesn't hurt. They take blood out of your body, run it in a centrifuge, pull out the growth factors and the healing factors of your own blood, and inject it into that spongy tissue in your penis. And then that further generates new tissue growth. So you're basically making your penis young again. And there's one last thing about that stack. So it's the penis pump, and I like a pump called the Whopper, because you can size it to your penis. It's not like you go into an adult store and you buy a Chinese piece of junk. It's a really good product that you can size to the dimensions of your own penis so that you're drawing the appropriate amount of vacuum, pulling the appropriate amount of blood in, and then stack that with the Gainswave. Or now they have a home acoustic wave device called the Phoenix Pro Him, which you can do the sound waves yourself. They're not as strong as if you went to a doctor, but some people are like, I want the tool and I want a DIY. And some people are like, I want an appointment. I want someone to do it for me.
Now, with some of these, I love it, right? With some of these treatments, how much consistency do you have to go? Are you going in weekly? If you have the penis pump at your home, how often are you recommending it? Obviously, it's different for different people, but
Yeah.
is this daily?
Well, I wrote a book that's had close to 40,000 downloads, and I've helped thousands of guys use penis pumps because, well, for two reasons. Number one, guys will always do it wrong and they'll be like, I'll just go to level 11 on day one. They always want to make
Right.
it the high end. They're
Yeah.
like, I can take it. And I'm like, dude,
Right.
you're going to
Less is more.
Less is more. It's like
a
making
hard
a
concept to
stew.
get,
It's low and slow, But I wrote a book, and you can get it at pumpingguide.com. And it lays everything I've been talking about out, including how to pump your penis, whether you're trying to do a reverse ED, reverse the atrophy of aging, or you're trying to do penis enlargement, which is what pumps are great for too. And I wanted to help men with this because a lot of guys, they'll buy the junk, they'll use it wrong, and they'll be like, that didn't work. And it's like, actually, dude, follow my plan and it will totally work, because you just have to know how to do it the right way. And now men, they trust me. Like, thank you. I did what you said. It worked. When I get out of the shower and I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that's my dick. That looks amazing. And they're so happy. So basically, it's an every other day pumping for 8 to 15 weeks, depending on your situation. The Gainswave are typically a series of 6 treatments, but guys with very difficult erectile dysfunction or diabetes or advanced heart disease, sometimes they have to do a series of 3 of those to see a difference. And there are some people who nothing's going to work. They're too far gone. But for the large number of men who are running around out there who are like getting a little bendy or want to be a little bit bigger, or, they're just starting to see the signs of aging, these treatments, this sexual biohacking stack works wonders.
Wow.
I know.
I
so
love
cool.
that.
Me too.
So I wonder how much, because I love all these things you're giving us, and they're not just popping a pill like everybody,
right.
It's not a Viagra, which I think can work, but we don't really know what's in these. And I love what you're recommending. How much on top of that is diet as well, having a healthy diet? Or are you talking about people that are too far gone, that the clogging, even with a good diet, may not help a hard erection?
Well, what's interesting too is that one of the other pieces of the stack is taking a nitric oxide supplement and checking your testosterone levels.
Okay. Right.
Because Viagra actually works on your nitric oxide system. And I personally think Viagra is a great tool to use. Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, they're all great tools to use, but you don't want to have to rely on them. I mean, I think they're a great insurance policy if you're in a situation that's a little nerve-wracking, you're with a new partner, or you want to stud it out for the evening or whatever. And then they're great. They're performance-enhancing drugs. But it would be nice if you had the performance yourself. And for a lot of guys that are generally relying on Viagra, I say, start taking a nitric oxide supplement and using that, and then mini dosing the Viagra. Instead of a 60 milligram dose, maybe you can get down to a 10 milligram dose. Maybe you can get all the way down to taking nothing because you've topped up your own nitric oxide reservoirs. And for men,
real quick,
go
can
ahead.
you explain what nitric oxide is, just for many of us that aren't aware of it?
Yeah, it's a gaseous signaling molecule that your body makes that essentially your vascular system, all your blood vessels, they have muscle around them, endothelial muscle. And the muscle, your body squeezes the blood to send it to the right place at the right time. Your brain when you're doing work, your belly when you're digesting, and your pelvis when you're having sex. And if it can't kind of squeeze it and get it down there and get enough down there and get enough trapped to lock it in, you can't get a firm erection. And we know that our testosterone declines 10% for every decade once we're over 20, once we hit our 30s, but so does our nitric oxide production. And so for a lot of guys, it could be an issue of low testosterone. It could equally and almost always is an issue of low nitric oxide, especially when, and Steve, you asked the question about nutrition, especially when people aren't eating their vegetables, because leafy green vegetables have the nitrates that turn into nitrites in your saliva as you chew, and then turn into nitric oxide in your stomach with stomach acid. So if you're using a antibacterial mouthwash, you're not able to make your own nitric oxide. And then if you're using a proton pump inhibitor or an acid blocker, you don't have enough stomach acid to make nitric oxide. And you need that to get the blood into your penis. So nitric oxide is as important, if not more important than testosterone. And here's the last interesting little tidbit on nitric oxide. And that is that there's two amino acids that your body uses to generate nitric oxide. One of them is lysine or arginine, and the other one is citrulline. And arginine, if you have herpes, it can bother people with herpes, and it's also not as bioavailable for people who are older. If you're over 40, citrulline is actually a better amino acid to use to supplement with to generate nitric oxide. A lot of guys that go to the gym, they're used to taking large amounts of arginine when they're young to get that pump, to get their muscles ripped. So they'll do that to get the pump in their muscles. So that's what that is. That's blood flow in their muscles. It pumps up their blood vessels and their veins pop. But as you get older, that system doesn't work as well. So citrulline is actually better.
I love it. Okay, we have just enough time to ask about the 20 Flow.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and your supplements that we can find at your site.
Yeah, well, I make my own nitric oxide supplement for people over 40 who want a citrulline product, because I looked out in the marketplace and most of these kind of nitric oxide products are made in China, and they're made from big vats of corn syrup that they ferment them, and they put bacterial injections in them to convert them into these amino acids. And then it's a white powder and they stuff it in a pill. And the problem with that is that they're pesticide laden. They're giant cornfields full of pesticides. And I've talked to chemists, and they tell me that if you start with pesticide-laden corn, you end up with pesticides in your supplements. So I wanted to make an organic citrulline-based product that my guys could use. And by the way, the interesting thing is that women have as much erectile tissue in our vulvas as our male-bodied partners do in their penis. And so we suffer from ED too, but it's like everybody's talking about men because it's so visible. You can see when they can't get an erection. But when women can't get an erection, we also suffer from the same things that guys do, where, like, for example, a lot of older guys have sensation loss and they have trouble achieving climax. And so the citrulline is really like ground zero. The very first thing you should do is start topping up your citrulline. And so the 20 is my company that makes Flow, which is the product that is an organic citrulline supplement, which I always say take that every day and then 20 minutes before sex, so that you can, if you're taking Viagra, you can take less.
Nice. Well, I love this. Okay, where can people find this, and where should we direct people to?
Well, you can go to the20store.com to get your bottles of Flow, or you can go to Amazon and get your bottles of Flow. So it's available. It's easy to find. And thank you for asking me for my URL. I'm always happy when people take my product, because number one, I just want you to take a good quality, clean supplement. And so few people understand how important nitric oxide is for a strong erection, especially the distinction of the arginine versus the citrulline.
Well, excellent information, jam-packed. I'm going to list all these links on tagspodcast.com. Susan, can we follow you? What's the best way to follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram by my name, Susan Bratton. But really, for the kind of things we've been talking about, the best place
Sure.
to get the information is at my video website, which is betterlover.com. I have interviews with the guy that invented the P shot. I talk to you about how to use penis pumps. I explain what Gainswave is. I talk about penis enlargement, reversing ED, microdosing with the arginine versus the citrulline for not having to take Viagra, all that stuff, plus how to have hot sex. So I think that's a good place. If this is something that's been valuable to you, then perhaps this is the place to find it.
I love it. Susan, thank you so much. We'll have you back on the show sometime soon. I really appreciate it.
Steve, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here, and I love talking about this stuff. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to help more people have great sex.
Hey guys, your buddy Steve V here, host of Tags Podcast, and I want to tell you what I'm thankful for this season. It's Manscaped. Recently, I told you I went to the Halloween Allegria party where I wore nothing but a leather apron. Ass was out. Well, you know I needed to trim my bush down underarms, and so forth. My favorite product was the Ultra Smooth Package by Manscaped, which includes the Crop Exfoliator, Crop Gel, and a great small blade that it comes with that really did the job. I'm telling you, no nicks, cuts, or any of that. It was so seamless. I did it in the shower, my go-to. Think your holiday spread is good? It's time for you to give thanks to Manscaped Performance Package 4.0, or as I like to call it, the perfect package for your package. And inside you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. Think of it as a cornucopia for your balls. And you can't forget the Manscaped's liquid formulations. They're like the pumpkin pie and ice cream after Thanksgiving dinner. Can't live without it. And let me tell you real quick, Manscaped has been busy and just launched their refined body wash and 2-in-1 shampoo plus conditioner. Both featured the Manscaped signature scent and will help unlock your confidence this year. Your boys and body will be oh so fresh and so clean when you start off your self-care routine with the ultimate body wash, shampoo, and conditioner. So get 20% off plus free shipping with the code TAGS, TAGS, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code TAGS at manscaped.com. Be thankful this holiday season for the best gift of all from Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Okay, let's keep the conversation going. Up next, Dr. Tracy Gapin is a urologist with a successful procedure known as Gainswave for erectile dysfunction, and he has a free digital download for his book, Male 2.0, Cracking the Code to Limitless Health and Vitality, just for TAGS listeners. So you want to listen to this very informative interview coming up. Here's my conversation with Dr. Tracy Gapin. Well, I'm very happy and excited to have my next guest on the show. Dr. Tracy Gapin is a board certified by the American Board of Urology and is a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. He is a leading Gainswave provider, which we're going to find out more about in a little bit. Dr. Gapin founded Sarasota Prostate Care in 2014 to provide an MRI-targeted fusion biopsy and HIFU, which I want to ask more about that. Dr. Gapin, welcome to TAGS Podcast. So many questions to ask you today.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Well, first, I just want to talk as a urologist. Our prostate health is so important to us. And when should we essentially be seeing a urologist, and how do we keep a healthy prostate?
Yeah, great question. So in general, when we talk about prostate screening or prostate exams, what we're really talking about there is screening for prostate cancer. And there are some general guidelines for when that should occur. For every man starting at the age of 50, they should be getting a yearly blood test to check their PSA and a prostate exam. And that's every year starting at the age of 50. If you are African American or if you have a strong family history, then we recommend that starts at age 40. Now, that's something that can be done by your primary care doctor or a urologist, either way, but some doctor needs to be checking you out every year starting at either age 40 or age 50 accordingly.
Got it. And I definitely at 50, fall into that category. And I've had that blood work done. Most of our audience is gay men and partake in anal intercourse. Do we have to be more careful or have it checked? Does that factor into screenings?
Great question. Yeah, it really does not affect that at all. When we do prostate exams, the prostate is adjacent to the rectum, and so that's the best way to do a digital rectal exam of the prostate through the rectum. But anal intercourse does not affect anything to do with the prostate, nor any risk of prostate cancer.
Got it. And you, as I mentioned before, you created an MRI targeted fusion biopsy and high intensity focused ultrasound specifically for looking for prostate cancer. Can you just talk briefly about that?
Yeah, sure. And on full transparency, I didn't actually create that, but what I did is I was one of the pioneers in utilizing MRI guidance for prostate biopsies. So in my traditional urology life, I'm now considered a recovering urologist as I focus
Right.
on men's health optimization and longevity and so on. But in my former life, when I was working with men who would have an elevated PSA, the old fashioned standard approach was an ultrasound guided prostate biopsy, which is done through the rectum. And the problem with that is that is flawed in the fact that you can often miss cancers because ultrasound does not really show anything within the prostate very well in terms of areas that should be targeted or areas of concern. Whereas if you have a prostate MRI, you can see very discrete areas of concern that may be suggestive of a cancer. And when you're doing a biopsy, of course, you want to be able to put a needle through those spots to identify if there's any cancer. And so there's technology that is now fairly commonplace, but back about 10 years ago, I was one of the pioneers in utilizing that approach as really a cutting edge strategy for identifying prostate cancers very early on. And then HIFU, or high intensity focused ultrasound, which is a non-invasive ultrasound guided treatment for prostate cancer, is really a nice adjuvant to the MRI guided biopsy, in that if you do an MRI and you see an area of concern and then you have a biopsy done that shows a very small discrete cancer, now rather than undergoing radical surgery where the whole prostate's removed or undergoing radiation therapy, which both have fairly significant side effects, we can do an ultrasound based treatment to destroy or kill that cancer in those very small areas while still preserving the rest of the prostate.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. I love that. Well, in your book, Male 2.0, Cracking the Code to Limitless Health, and you talk about epigenetics coaching, which essentially, you write, teaches you how to activate or suppress gene expression. And the goal of epigenetics coaching is to optimize your life by deconstructing your unique genetic makeup. I want to talk more about this epigenetics coaching, and can we really change our gene makeup?
Yeah, great question. So when we look at genetics, we each have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and those chromosomes are made up of long, long strands of DNA, and it is a double helical configuration. So it's kind of like a twisted ladder, if you will. And one arm of each rung of the ladder is from your mom, and one side from your dad, and those are your genes. And long segments of your DNA make genes, and that's what codes for everything that happens in your body, your physiologic makeup, and everything about your health and behavior and who you are. Well, we cannot change those genes. Those genes are what they are. You got those from your mom, got those from your dad, and those are fixed. But what you can change is what we call genetic expression. So let me give you some examples to make this a little clearer. So there's one gene in particular called the ApoE gene, or apolipoprotein E. And you don't need to know the science behind it other than just understand that people who have a certain variant of the ApoE gene are at increased risk for developing cardiovascular disease, which means major, adverse cardiac events, heart attack, stroke, or early mortality,
Sure.
or Alzheimer's disease at a very early age. Okay, that's a fixed gene. You can't change. If you have that gene, it is what it is. But what we found is that for people who eat a low saturated fat diet, meaning saturated fat are foods like red meat, dairy, eggs, cheese, hamburgers, bacon, steak, pork, any kind of dairy
Fatty
product.
acids, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Especially guys who are on keto diet, they think that that's the thing you're supposed to be doing now. Every guy thinks that
Right.
it kind of
The bad way of doing keto,
some
right?
bro science going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyone who has a certain variant of the ApoE gene, we've learned that if you limit your saturated fat intake, that risk is gone. You basically are now at the same risk as the general population. And so that's an example of how you can change genetic expression simply by your lifestyle. There are genes related to our metabolism. A lot of guys have difficulty with weight loss. And there are a number of reasons when I work with guys in my weight loss program, a number of reasons why that may be. One may be because they're eating the wrong kind of foods. Some may be that they're not doing the right kind of exercise program. Some guys may be that they cannot sense when they're full. And this is a gene, there are a number of genes that will tell you when you're full. Whereas we can modulate that with various strategies so that you're better able to detect when you're full and you don't overeat. For other guys who are trying to lose weight, it may simply be choosing the right kind of foods that are better for weight loss. And again, this is not changing the genes themselves. This is changing how genes are expressed. And that may present as longer life, better weight loss, better sleep, better fitness, better sex, whatever it may be. And so that's really what it's all about. When we talk about the word epigenetics, which can be confusing, think of it as how your activities, lifestyle, behavior can affect your health by affecting genetic expression.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think we're just starting to learn that there isn't one blueprint for weight loss, or looking on social media and seeing I want that kind of body and seeing if I just do what they do, oh, they did keto diet, that's going to be for me. We're starting to learn that everyone has a unique kind of blueprint, which is kind of an exciting time. I want to talk a little bit about sexual performance. You do a lot of work with that, and
Yes.
you talked a lot about health and what we put into our bodies. How can that affect like erectile dysfunction by the types of foods we eat?
Sure. Yeah. So we know that when a man has an erection, that is based on increased blood flow. And to achieve healthy, normal erections, you need adequate blood flow. And so we look at all the things that can affect blood flow. And this is very similar to when you think of cardiac health and vascular disease throughout your body, where the blood flow to the penis is composed of very tiny little arteries, smaller than the arteries to your heart. And the reason that's important is anything that affects that blood flow, you're going to see it first in your sexual function. Later, you may see it in your heart. And so that's why guys who have erectile issues or issues with sexual performance, especially at a younger age, the first thing we want to think about is vascular disease and make sure that we're screening their heart and doing a good cardiac evaluation. So things that we can do to improve erections tie in very closely with what we can do to eliminate or reduce risk of cardiovascular disease. And so that means reducing inflammation, improving nitric oxide delivery, which is the molecule that causes increased blood flow. So we look at things like improving insulin sensitivity, which is basically tied in with our glucose, our blood sugar regulation. So eating the right kinds of foods, limiting vegetable oils like canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, for example, eliminating refined sugars and processed foods, sleep. Poor sleep is one of the most common things I see in the men I work with, and chronic sleep deprivation causes increased cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and that's tied to inflammation and insulin resistance, and all these affect blood flow.
What about alcohol? Because, a lot of us like to have our
Yep.
cocktails.
Yeah. Great point. So alcohol has a massive inflammatory effect on your body. And when we look at chronic inflammation, what that does is that ultimately affects blood flow. And so it crushes your sleep as well. It is a sedative. So a lot of guys will think that, alcohol is great for sleep. It's actually terrible for sleep because what it'll do is it'll make you fall asleep, but it actually crushes the quality of your sleep, meaning you get no deep sleep cycle. So when you go through the stages of sleep, you have REM sleep, light sleep, and deep sleep. The deep sleep is the key restorative time of sleep. But when you drink alcohol or use sedatives, you never get into that phase. And so you miss the restorative effect. So that's why a lot of times if you drink alcohol in the evening and then you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, you feel crummy because you actually never really got the restorative sleep that you need. And so alcohol, it's not only the calories, not only the crummy carbs, the poor quality nutrients, the inflammatory effect that it causes. It also affects insulin sensitivity, which is blood sugar regulation, and it crushes your sleep. It also lowers testosterone. And so
Right,
numerous
right.
reasons why alcohol is really detrimental for sexual function.
Well, okay, so then if people, obviously we need to have a healthy lifestyle, and you can check in with your provider about these types of things. It sounds like your book has a lot of ways to get on that path. But for those that are really suffering from ED, you do or work with Gainswave. Talk about what is Gainswave and how it's non-invasive and an alternative for people with ED.
Sure. Yeah, I love Gainswave for improving sexual performance. So when it comes to men's sexual performance, I see men all day, every day who are dealing with challenges related to sexual function, and it may be a guy's having occasional issues where sometimes it's just not as firm or as consistent as he would like, to other guys who maybe have real significant challenges getting an erection at all. And so there's a wide spectrum there. And a lot of it is incorporating, lifestyle strategies, optimizing hormones, optimizing micronutrients, and dealing with stress and sleep, and a whole systems based approach that I like to emphasize. But when we look at actually optimizing performance and blood flow, Gainswave is a wonderful way of really tackling the underlying problem or cause rather than a quick fix band-aid. So let me explain what I mean by that. When we look at solutions for improving sexual performance, there are band-aids, which are quick fix. Want to have an erection right now. I don't care what the cause is, just fix it for me immediately.
Right.
That's when we look at things like the blue pill, the yellow pill, looking at a
Sure.
vacuum pump, injection therapy, all those kind of things. Those don't fix the underlying problem. Those just treat the symptom right here, right now. And eventually those treatments tend to quit working. Over time, they lose efficacy, and we have to keep increasing to get to a point where typically they stop working. Whereas we have regenerative approaches, which is looking at the underlying cause or underlying problem and fixing that so that men can have normal, healthy sexual performance when they want it. And that's where Gainswave comes in, where we can improve blood flow. We can look at options like PRP or platelet-rich plasma as well. So Gainswave, to describe it a little bit for the listeners, Gainswave is a non-invasive treatment. It involves coming in the office and you lay on the table and we put some numbing cream on the penis. And we use a probe. It looks like an ultrasound probe. It's painless, it's non-invasive, and it's just put on the surface of the penis. And it delivers low intensity shock waves or sound waves, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
through the skin into the erectile tissue of the penis. And this technology is similar to what I used in my former days as a urologist for kidney stone breakup. So that was called ESWL, or extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy. But now at a very lower intensity, we found that it works very well for sexual function. Now, why? Well, what it does is we found that the science shows us that this treatment will actually activate stem cells, which are the progenitor cells, like the cells from which every other cell is formed from, and it will stimulate the creation of new blood flow called angiogenesis or neovascularization, where it increases normal, healthy blood flow to the penis. And that's ultimately what an erection is. And so that's why I love Gainswave for improving sexual performance. by addressing the underlying cause. PRP, or platelet-rich plasma, is a procedure where we take a man's blood, draw blood from his arm, and spin that blood down in a centrifuge. And we can separate out the platelets and the growth factors from the rest of the blood product. And that concentrated solution will be very high in stimulatory cytokines and chemokines and growth factors that will stimulate also more blood flow creation. And so I love the combination of Gainswave with PRP to help men, again, not just treat short-term the problem, but to fix the underlying etiology.
Nice. And typically, how many sessions would one have to go? Is it dependent on how far along you have ED?
Yeah, great question. So some guys can start with as few as 6 treatments, and those are typically done twice a week for 3 weeks. So 6 treatments is kind of a starting point. But I'll tell you that most guys tend to get the best results when they do 12 treatments. And so that's typically twice a week for 3 weeks. We'll pause for about a month, and then we'll do another 6 treatments at that point. And guys who have mild issues with performance tend to respond much, much better than guys who have really significant issues. Those guys tend to need 12 and sometimes even 18 treatments of Gainswave to really get the full effect.
Got it. And I know you provide it in your office. Where are you based, by the way, Dr.
Yeah,
Gapin?
I'm in Sarasota, Florida. We call it paradise.
Got it. And people can go to Gainswave.com or follow on, I think, all social media at Gainswave, correct?
That's exactly right.
Cool. Before I let you go, I just want to ask a little bit about, you mentioned different, supplements that, can you talk about biohacking and what does that entail?
Yeah, sure. So the term biohacking is a phrase that I think Dave Asprey might have been the first one to actually coin that term, but it really means looking at what kinds of strategies can we incorporate in our life to improve our performance. And that performance may be sexually, it may be athletically, it may be, mental cognitive performance in the
general
boardroom.
Optimization. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah. And that may be things like learning how to breathe. We could spend an hour talking about how most of us tend to breathe the wrong way, believe it or not, and that we should all be
Right.
breathing slower and through our nose. And there's massive physiologic implications of that. We can look at different supplements. We can look at things like peptides. Peptides are amazing signaling molecules. They're basically short proteins, if you will, that are amazing at having very precise functions, such as reducing inflammation or helping with musculoskeletal repair or improving issues with mood or anxiety or helping with sleep or boosting natural growth hormone production. It goes on and on.
What about nitric oxide? You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. So nitric oxide is a really key molecule when it comes to blood flow. And so a lot of times ways of boosting nitric oxide is valuable. Things like supplements like L-citrulline for some guys can be very beneficial. A lot of guys will try L-arginine. L-arginine actually doesn't get absorbed to the gut, so you have to take L-citrulline, which gets converted internally into L-arginine, which can increase nitric oxide. And there are other supplements that we can look at for that sort of thing as well. Yeah.
I love it. Well, this has been so informative. Again, we can follow you at Gainswave. Is there any other places you want us to follow you at?
Yeah, sure. You can check me out on my website. It's drtracygapin.com. Again, that's drtracygapin.com. And I'll be happy to offer your listeners a free copy of my book called Male 2.0, Cracking the Code to Limitless Health and Vitality. And you can get that on my site, drtracygapin.com/limitless.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you, Dr. Gapin.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I want to thank my guests today, Susan Bratton and Dr. Tracy Gapin, for joining the show. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. Wow, what a wealth of information for our sexual well-being as we all age. I mean, it's just the way it is, right? So I love that they are on the cutting edge of this. You can find links to all of the guests and the things that they are promoting on TAGSPodcast.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at TAGSPodcast, particularly Instagram and TikTok, where we post the most. And you can always DM us for sex or relationship advice. All right, I'm back with Cody Marie Stoggett this Wednesday for Tags Live, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time, so please join us, and all new shows the following week. In the meantime, continue having hot, gay sex.
You know when you order a new video game, or a golf club, or a blender, and then it arrives at your door, you get a little thrill. Imagine how much more thrilling it is when you order a new car. With Nissan at Home, you can shop for the perfect ride and order it without ever having to go anywhere. Sure beats a golf club or a blender. Buy a new car entirely online with Nissan at Home. Delivered direct from dealer to driveway. Thrill starts here. Services may vary at participating dealers, subject to applicable law. See dealer for details.